Hi and welcome to my channel. My name is Francisca, and on this channel I share sewing tutorials, sewing tips, pattern tutorials, sewing hacks, and sometimes craft tutorials. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to make this beautiful morning slipper or bedroom slipper. It is something that you can decide to make and gift to a friend, or you can decide to, make one for yourself. If you are new to my channel, welcome. Please click the subscribe button, click the bell so you get updates when I post new videos. And now let's get right into the tutorial. So materials you will need for this project include your main fabric or your outer fabric. It can be any type of fabric, preferably something that has like a soft touch. I'll be using Ankara for mine. You also need thick wadding. You need soft wadding. You're going to need something like this. It looks like a very thick foam. That's the only way I can explain it. In Nigeria here, it is called mako, but this mako that I'm using is the soft one. There's one that is very, very thick. It has much more thickness than this. That one is called the thick mako, but I would describe this as a very, very thick foam. The next thing I'm going to do is to prepare the sole of the slippers that we want to make. Okay, so what you're going to do is to grab yourself an old pair of slippers. So I'm going to place it like this. And then what I'm going to do is to go ahead and use my marker pen to trace around the slipper. And then I'm going to go ahead and add about a 1/4 inch all around. After adding the 1/4 inch allowance all around, I'm going to go ahead and trim this off to get our sole. So I'll follow the markings that I've just created. The next thing I'm going to do is to slim this part a little bit. I just want to slightly slim off the insole. So I'll just come right here and slim it off. Can you see what I'm doing? Just like this. Then I'll trim off the first one. Then I'll use this first one to trim off the second one. So I'll just go ahead and trace it out like this. And then I'll trim it off. I went ahead to label this left and right. I'm going to duplicate this shape using the wadding and using the Ankara fabric. But for the soft wadding, it will be 2-2 per leg. For the Ankara, I'm going to make it 1-1 per leg. So I'll just go ahead now, place it just on top like this. Use my marker to trace all around the wadding, and then I'll go on to trim this out. So here's the first leg. I will take this now and use it to cut the other 3 pieces that we are going to need. After cutting out the pieces, this is what I have: my Ankara fabric, the 2 thick wadding, and then the sole. Okay, I've cut it out for both feet. Now I have the wrong side of my Ankara fabric touching the part of the wadding that is going to fuse to it, so that when I go and press it, the wadding will fuse to the fabric, and then this wadding will fuse to the next wadding. Okay, so I'm going to take it like this now, take it to my pressing area, and then press this down so everything fuses together. So I was able to fuse the top part where the Ankara fabric was, but because of the thickness of the wadding, I couldn't really get the bottom layer of the wadding to fuse to the first layer of the wadding. So what I did was to stitch all around this shape that we have here to hold everything in place. Do you understand? So I did it for both feet. So what I'm going to do next is to create the top covering, like where we are going to insert our feet. To get the length of, the covering, I grabbed one sole. I'm going to measure from the top of the sole to the bottom, and I have about 12 inches. So 12 divided by 2, that's 6 inches. I'm going to add 1 inch to that. That will make the length of my covering 7 inches. Okay, and then for the width of the covering, what I'm going to do is come right at that 7 inches. I'm going to come here and measure what I have, and I have 4 inches. I'm going to multiply this by 2 to get the width of the covering. Do you understand? So I'm going to be having 7 by what? 8 inches. So I have my fabric here now to create the covering. I've gone ahead to fold it into two like this. I'm going to fold it again. So this folded part of my fabric is going to be the bottom. That is where I'm going to be inserting my feet. And this part right here is going to be at the top of the sole. Do you understand? Make sure to measure and check that you have close to the length of the covering of your sole, okay? So I'm supposed to be having 7 inches, but I have here 7.5, so this is perfect for me. The width of the covering that we calculated for was 8 inches, right? I'm going to go ahead and fold the fabric again into 2. I divided, the width of the covering by 2, which gave me 4 inches. From this folded part, I'm going to mark that 4 inches. And what I'm going to do is to create like a semicircle. Can you see how I'm going? Like this. So you're just going to use freehand to draw your semicircle, okay? And once that is done, I'll go ahead and cut this out. After cutting, this is what I have. By the time I open it up, it is going to look like this, okay? Since I cut for the 2 soles, I'll go ahead and separate it into 2. So I have it like this now, 1 for each slipper. Do you understand? So what I'm going to do next is to notch the folded parts. And after notching, I'm going to fuse the 2 of them with the lighter wadding, with the softer wadding, okay? So I'll fuse the 2 of them from top to bottom like this. So after fusing with interfacing, this is what I have. I'm going to fold this now by the notch that I created on the fabric initially. So I'll just use that to fold it, use it to fold this part as well. I'll do the same thing for the other one, use the notch to fold it. What I'm going to do next is to grab the soles of this slipper that we are making. Remember that my length is 7 inches, right? So from the top of the sole, I'm going to mark that 7 inches. Do you understand? So can you see the mark that I made right here? So that's my 7-inch mark. I'll do the same thing for this other sole. Mark my 7 inches. What I'm going to do next is measure from where I marked the 7 inches all the way around to the other end. I'm going to start from here now. So can you see what I'm doing? I keep measuring like that. So I have 16.5 inches right here. The next thing I'm going to do is to come right to our slipper cover. I'm going to go ahead and mark the middle of it. So I've got 16.5 inches all around after measuring. 16.5 divided by 2 is 8.25. From the middle of this slipper cover to this end, all around like this, I'm supposed to have 8.25 inches. If I have more than that, I'll need to trim it off. So I'm just going to go ahead and measure this like this. So can you see what I'm doing? So I have 9.75 right here. So in order for me to get 8.25, I'm going to have to maneuver my tape rule. Place the head of your tape rule right at the center of your slipper cover and then curve your tape rule, making sure that 8.25 is at this edge. Do you understand? And once you have 8.25 at that edge, use your chalk to trace that out, okay? So did you see my chalk mark? What I'm going to do is to go ahead and trim this out. That's the way you are going to shapen this your slipper cover. Then I'm going to fold this into 2. Use this cut I have here to trim out the other part, the other side. So just like that, go ahead and trim it off. After trimming it off, you're going to have something like this. So this should be able to go around your slipper without you having any issues. What I'm going to do now is use this as a pattern to cut out this second piece that I have here. So after trimming it off, this is what I have. What I'm going to do is to go ahead and draw out some lines on this because I want to quilt this. Okay, so using my ruler, I'll use that as a guide. All these lines that you are seeing here, I'm going to stitch on all of them like that. Okay, so I'll take this to my sewing machine and stitch. I'll repeat what I've done here. I'll repeat it on this side as well. So what I just explained earlier was quilting. If you do not want to quilt, what you need to do is to go ahead and sew around the edge of your slipper cover, okay, so that it is going to be easy for you to attach to the sole of the slipper. So I'm going to grab the soles now. What I'm going to do next is to pin it at the point where I marked the 7 inches, okay? So instead of using pins, I'll use pegs, as that will make it easier for me to work with. Then I'll come right here, pin the center of the slipper cover. I'm going to pin it to the middle of the slipper like this. Then I'll come right here now, pin this other side to the 7 inch right here. So just like that, I'm going to go ahead and take this to my sewing machine now, and I'll be stitching all around the edge, stopping right at this point here. Okay, so whatever I do here, I'll repeat the same thing for this second leg. So we're going to go ahead and sew. After sewing it on, this is what I have. So what I'm going to do next is to glue this to the sole. I'm going to glue this on top of the sole. So my top bond glue wasn't strong enough. I ripped it open, and I'm going to be using a stronger adhesive glue, which is this, orangey or brown looking glue that shoemakers use. So I'm going to use this one instead. Okay, and it has a really, really strong smell. So you want to maybe cover your nose up if that will help you. Better still, use it in an airy environment so that the smell doesn't choke you. So I'm just going to go ahead and apply the glue every single place. I'll just go ahead now and place the slipper right on top. So I'll just leave this for the glue to, dry out a bit and let it get stronger. Okay. And then I'll repeat the same thing for the other sole. So once everything has been glued down, this is what it looks like, and I'm actually satisfied with this glue. I made some bias tape from the same fabric. If you don't know how to make bias tape, I'll put the link in my description so you can watch how to make bias tape. And I'll be using this to conceal this very, very rough edge that we have here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is to apply some glue to this bias. Oh, that was a lot. So I'm going to spread the glue. So I'm going to start from the top like this. The reason why I'm using glue is because I can't sew through this thickness with my sewing machine. So I'm using glue for this part. So if you notice that there are some places that are still opening, I would advise that you use a toothpick to apply the glue in those places. Do you understand? And this is it, guys. This is how the back will look when you are done. And this is how the front will look like. So whatever I've done here, I'll just go ahead and repeat the same thing for the other slipper. So after gluing, all you need to do is to apply some pressure all around the slipper, and that's it for our morning slipper. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, kindly give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, turn on the bell so you get updates when I post new videos, and I'll be seeing you in my next tutorial. Bye.